To say that there lived a noble Sith Lord sounds oxymoronic. The Sith have historically been nothing but selfish, greedy, and entirely absorbed with forging their own individual paths to greatness. This especially rings true in the era of the Dark Council, the ruling group that oversaw Vitiate's reborn Sith. Never was there a worse hive of backstabbing and political power plays, scum, and villainy as this. But surprisingly, there was actually one among them that did not play their games. One man who was genuinely more concerned about the prosperity of the Empire than he was his own power, making him one Sith, maybe the only one that never feared death, and because of it, remained the most powerful Sith in the Empire beneath only Vitiate himself. This, my friends, is Darth Marr. Welcome to the Archives, Acolytes. In today's holocron, we are going to once again be traveling back to the days of the Old Republic, examining and taking a closer look at the Sith who truly stood out from the rest of them. While he may not have been Vectivus, one who claimed to have done no evil in their life, Darth Marr may just be the most honorable and upstanding Sith Lord who has ever lived. Perhaps the only Sith Lord that somehow earned the respect of both Sith and Jedi alike. But before we get into today's holocron, we find that one thing that both the Jedi and Sith respect other than Darth Marr is knowledge. So if you too find this to be true, then reach out with the Force and crush that subscribe button if you haven't already. Our archives are ever expanding, and we would hate for you to miss out on our daily uploads. Now guys, let's begin. To understand the significance of Darth Marr, we need to establish the climate in which he lived. Vitiate had long since become a recluse into his own empire, delving deep into the shadows, never being directly involved. In fact, he left almost all of the decision-making concerning the day-to-day functions of the Empire under the Dark Council. A seat on this Dark Council was the greatest place of honor, power, and influence within the Sith Empire of this era. Many Siths spent their entire lives plotting their ascension to the Council, but with millions vying for only 12 open seats, the competition was cutthroat to say the least. Even the powerful and the cunning few who managed to join the council often found themselves unseated in a few months. What's most interesting is the biggest threat to their lives were their fellow council members. Their lives were cut short by internal council power struggles or external enemies who sought to take their seat. Infighting was commonplace among the council members, in fact, and they were far from above sabotaging one another's efforts or spheres of influence. If one meant progressing down their own path, they would do anything, even destroy a fellow member of the council. But with the seats perpetually rotating because of this, in the year 3653 BBY, Darth Marr was by far the most senior member of the entire Dark Council. Every other member feared him, and anyone who tried to cross him or undermine Darth Marr's power was destroyed with swiftness. Most of the time, they didn't see it coming. Few actually know of how Darth Marr rose to power in this era, and none speak of the man before he became a Dark Lord. He just seemed to show up out of nowhere, emerging from the crowds of Korriban one day, establishing himself before recovering the lightsaber of Tulak Hord and claiming it for his new blade. His spiked armor, a motionless mask, was the only face that anyone ever saw of him. The terrifying visage he carried, this was evocative of a hideous Sith-spawn creature, striking fear into the hearts of all who laid eyes on him. His appearance was one thing, his voice was another. When Marr speaks, he commands the attention of the entire council with intimidating authority and stern wisdom. Marr sets himself apart from the bickering of his fellow council members, believing their power struggles to be ultimately unimportant to him, destructive to the Empire as the Republic was. To Darth Marr, such deadly games riddled the Empire's pyramid of power with hairline fractures in a time when they needed to stand united against an enemy. This was only natural, as he headed the sphere of defense of the Empire. This was the influence that focused on the protection through eradicating threats within and both outside Imperial borders. So for Darth Marr, his stern warnings to his peers against political games was part of his duty, and more than just words. But Marr commanded this power vehemently in the defense of his empire, an empire that now earned him a fearsome reputation throughout his 30-year galactic war. When a massive Republic fleet had emerged from hyperspace to reclaim Korriban, Darth Marr was the one that drove them back in defeat. When the Republic attempted to conquer the world of Ziost, it was Marr who destroyed the offensive line, pushing back the Republic almost negligently. He was known to be able to rout entire armies by himself and deflect assaults more thoroughly than any planetary shield. He was the main reason why the Empire did not get beaten back so easily once the Republic launched their counteroffensive, and perhaps why this war lasted for so long. Darth Marr genuinely cared about the people of the Empire that he was protecting. The Imperial public looked up to him as a messiah, as a sentinel of strength and hope. Surprisingly, his plans and schemes for power were never for his own gain, but to become strong enough to protect the Empire that he loved and cherished. All of Marr's plots and schemes were to ensure the longevity of the Empire after his death. And speaking of his death, that was another thing that made Darth Marr different and feared by other Sith. It was the one thing that he did not fear: death. Darth Marr's creed was this: life is the enemy, death is our solace. Fueled by zealous dedication to battle, Darth Marr believed that personal strength and evolution are won only through conflict, as the Sith Code suggests and teaches. To Darth Marr, death was not inevitable, it was necessary, a fate that only cowards waste energy avoiding. This is what made him even mentally stronger than Vitiate himself. Vitiate only ever felt two things: the hunger for power and the fear of death. Darth Marr embodied these principles in the Great Galactic War. He fearlessly battled on the front lines, and would even venture out and conquer worlds with an unforgiving fist. He was Sith after all. Much like Darth Malgus, Marr did not mind getting down and dirty on the front lines with his men, earning him copious amounts of respect and fanatical loyalty. But his moral code did not just intrigue the Sith, but it intrigued the Jedi as well. The Jedi were also wary of Darth Marr. The mystery that he carried with him, combined with his battlefield prowess, earned him a fearsome reputation among the Republic, and they all knew him by name. But it was Grandmaster Satele Shan who would end up finding out another side of this man after the war concluded, back in the year 3643 BBY. After about 5 years since the war between the Republic and the Sith resumed, the activities of both parties working from the Order of Revan lured both Darth Marr's fleet to Rishu at the same time the Republic forces under Satele Shan arrived. The two fleets, being enemies, engaged in warfare, but were interrupted when it was revealed that the battle was orchestrated by Revanite traitors aboard both fleets. Upon learning that Revan was still alive, Marr agreed to a temporary truce with Republic forces, and he would even meet with the Grandmaster Satele at a neutral location. Marr revealed to both the Republic and the Imperial forces that he had become aware of the Emperor's plan to extinguish not just the Republic, but all life in the galaxy. Marr also said that he had no wish to serve as a pawn for the Emperor's insanity. He continued to explain that if Revan were to revive the Emperor as he had planned, that Revan must be stopped at all cost. The combined fleets eventually joined forces and traveled to Yavin 4, where they established a coalition in order to stop Revan's plot. Revan's plan was to torture the Emperor and to murder him in the most brutal public way possible. Revan's mind was fractured, and the Sith in him only desired pure revenge. In the final stand against him, Marr fought alongside Jedi, Sith, and Mandalorian alike for the future of the entire galaxy. Darth Marr fought for life. After a difficult fight, and despite being temporarily overpowered by Revan, the group managed to defeat the Dark Lord. Unfortunately though, Revan had succeeded, and Vitiate had returned to life, his spirit feeding on the deaths of the coalition caused by the Revanites, which greatly puzzled and conflicted Marr, as the Emperor did not take a physical form or possess a body, and then left Yavin 4 as soon as he appeared. What would actually happen was the Emperor's spirit would rejoin his new main body, Valkorion, who was currently on the opposite end of the galaxy. Not too long after this though, Darth Marr would lead a Republic and an Imperial joint fleet deep into wild space in search of both Vitiate and the Eternal Empire. The Empire who had now raided several worlds belonging to Republic and Sith forces, before then retreating back into the unknown. At first, their expedition turned up absolutely nothing, but it was then that Valkorion decided that he would come to them instead. Suddenly, the Imperial fleet appeared in front of the Republic and Imperial forces, and engaged in them, sending several boarding pods into their flagships. Despite his efforts in trying to prevent the ship's loss, Darth Marr eventually determined that there wasn't anything more he could do. They were completely outgunned by the superior and unrelenting might of the Imperial fleet, and they were eventually captured. The two were brought to Zakuul, where they then met Emperor Valkorion for the first time. Marr, however, quickly deduced that Valkorion was the final identity of Vitiate, and the Sith declared that they were there to destroy him. Remembering Marr to have been a man of great power and vision, Valkorion offered the two of them to join him. Darth Marr, though, boldly refused, and proceeded to attack several knights of Zakuul, killing as many of them as possible before charging at Valkorion himself. But the Eternal Emperor, consolidating his godly power into a focused attack, shot Marr with a concentrated blast of Force lightning, and the legendary Sith Lord finally met his end. But this would not be the official end of this noble Sith. A post-mortem quote by Darth Marr says this: "In life, I dismissed the Jedi Code. I was wrong. There is no death. There is only the Force. And the Force has a plan." Though his physical body had died, Marr was unwilling to leave the Sith Empire undefended, and so miraculously, he manifested as a Force ghost. We believe he was indeed a Force ghost and not a Sith spirit, the difference being that Sith spirits often must latch themselves onto a place or an object, doing it to selfishly continue surviving. But with a Force ghost, they transcend through a desire of compassion and guidance. We believe that Darth Marr fits the latter category perfectly, and became more of a Jedi-like Force ghost. 5 years after his death, he communed with Satele Shan as they sensed the presence of Valkorion again. They would then travel to the home base of the Outlanders Alliance, which was comprised of elements of both Empire and Republic, all united against Vitiate and the Eternal Empire. Though the Grand Master admired their commitment, the spirit of Darth Marr lamented that many would die in the war to come. He would then guide the Outlander for the remainder of the war to come, and when the time came, all the spirits of those who Vitiate had wronged and murdered through his long life came together in unity to destroy him. And of course, Marr was present among them. To say that there lived a noble Sith Lord sounds oxymoronic. The Sith have historically been nothing but selfish, greedy, and entirely absorbed with forging their own path to greatness. But it was Darth Marr who proved that it was possible to be powerful and great within the dark side, without sacrificing everything to get there. Marr used his love for the Empire, his desire to see it succeed as a driving force for his ambition. He cared more about the Empire than anyone, even Vitiate. He cared about it so much that he ended up compromising with the Jedi, even embracing some of their teachings to live on and continue guiding someone who could ensure the Empire's security. Perhaps if Darth Marr had become the Emperor, then the Sith Empire may have looked very, very different. And maybe even an empire with lasting peace with the Jedi and the Republic. Maybe the war with the Republic would not have been so horrific, or maybe it could have been stopped altogether. But what do you think? Do you believe that there should have been more Sith like Darth Marr? Or was he that rare anomaly? And what do you think would have ever happened if Darth Marr had become Emperor? What do you think would have happened to the galaxy and the Sith at large? As always, Acolytes, thank you guys so much for joining us in the archives here again today, and may the Force be with you.